You know what, guys? It's Sunday. No intro riff today. I'm Ryan. This is Future Riffs, and today we're going to cover Hammer-ons and Pulloffs. Let's do it. So, Hammer-ons and pull-offs are a pretty simple technique that I'm willing to bet a lot of you guys are familiar with, or at least you've heard the terms. Something brought you to this video, so there has to be a reason, right? So let's talk about Hammer-ons and pull-offs, but the very first thing I want to teach you guys is an E minor pentatonic. I want to show you the E minor pentatonic in particular because I'm going to root all of my exercises for this video around that first position. So using your E minor pentatonic along with some chords and some simple things like that will get you geared up so that you can practice some of these riffs. So let me run through our E minor pentatonic here. So we're starting on our big E string open. Then we're going to play 3. I'm going to use my middle finger for every fretted note on this. That is how I run my first position pentatonic in general. I like to do hammer-ons and pull-offs with my middle finger, and I really like to play my E minor pentatonic with my what I feel like is my strongest finger. So 0, then 3rd fret, next string A string 0, 2nd fret, next string D string, 2nd fret, then G, 2nd fret, the next string's B string, 3rd fret. We can break it up a little bit. And then last, E string, 0, and then 3rd fret. Let me be quiet and let me play through the whole thing. Cool. All right, so that is our E minor first position pentatonic, and I played the entire thing with my middle finger. So if you don't already know your pentatonic, go ahead and take a second and run that pattern a few times. I bet you it won't take you 5 minutes to have it memorized. It's just not a super complicated pattern, so I bet you can handle getting that under your belt and getting some of these hammer-on and pull-off techniques under your belt today as well. So let's start with hammer-ons. A hammer-on is as simple as going from a lower note to a higher note and only using your pick once. So I'm going to go to my D string, I'm going to pick open D, and then I'm going to take my middle finger and I am going to, just like a hammer, slam my middle finger down into 2nd fret, very close to the fret that separates 2nd fret and 3rd fret. So I'm at the front of my fret. That's how I say it to all my students, is I'm at the front of my fret. You get the best tonality and the loudest hammer-on and pull-off if you hang out in the front of your fret. Same with chords, same with any riff. You really want to hang out in the fronts of your frets. There's not a whole lot of benefit being in the back. When you're in the back, it takes the string, there's more space in between where the string needs to meet and make contact to make that note. So you just want to be pinching your strings right. So let's do this hammer-on here. 0, hammer-on to 2. I should get about the same volume. And that's a hammer-on. That's simple. Now, I started on an interior string to stress the importance of aim. You can't be a sloppy hammerer, just like in regular life with a regular hammer. Don't go putting holes in your parents' drywall. Don't go putting holes in anyone's drywall. You own your own house? You don't want holes in that drywall either. So, be careful. Make sure that you're not sloppy with your hammers. A great way to make sure that you're not being sloppy with your hammers is to practice on interior strings. So D string, G, A, any of those. Now, after I feel really comfortable with the 1, I'm going to go ahead and go through the other strings. just hammers. So I'm going to start on my E string. Nice strong hammer. A string. There is going to be one thing you're going to notice. You're going to immediately notice that your lower strings are easier to do the hammer-on on. The thicker string is just an easier string to hammer. It holds sustain easier, the whole thing. It makes contact with your fret harder because it has more surface area. Everything about it is going to be easier. So when you get to your skinnier strings, your B string, your G, your E, they're going to require a little bit more power. So make sure you're really making contact with that string. It might take you a few tries, but just aim at the front of your fret and give it a lot of power. Okay, so now let's look at pull-offs just as simple as we did harmonics. I'm going to go back up my pentatonic here. I'm going to start 3rd fret on the skinny E string. I pick it, and then I pull off. I'm physically pulling the string, like flicking. Now, I can't do that drastic of a motion with my hand, or I'm going to throw myself off with whatever riff I'm playing. So, I'm going to try to keep my hand real nice and planted. I want both notes to be the same volume, like before. And then I'm going to start running this pattern inward. So let's go through the entire pentatonic scale without me blabbing a whole bunch. And I'll do all pull-offs. So here we go. Let's do it one more time. Love those little techniques. I just did some ricochet tapping to throw it in there along with some hammer-ons and stuff, but that's still all the basic techniques. All I'm doing is hammer-ons and pull-offs and using my pick seldomly. So once you feel good about your pull-offs and your hammer-ons, you feel like you can do them up and down the pentatonic scale using your open string as your root, the next step is probably going to be planting a finger and doing hammer-ons and pull-offs. So let's use our G. I'm going to plant my pointer finger in 2nd fret, and I'm going to hammer on with my ring finger to 4. There's no difference in how to approach this technique. You're just going to find that because your hand is already planted on a note, that's going to be a little bit harder to achieve a loud hammer-on. You can handle it. Do everything the same. Hit the front of the fret. Hit it with a lot of force. Don't be sloppy. Just nail it. You can do it. So when you feel good about that, try doing 2 hammer-ons in a row. I'm going to go from open G, hammer on 2nd fret, and then hammer on 4th fret. It should be all about the same volume. When I feel really good about the one string, I'm going to start adding other strings. Whether it sounds real melodic or not, I might just keep that same pattern, 0, 2, 4, 0, 2, 4, and run my strings. So I feel like I really have it very, very clean. Then I'm going to do the opposite. Pull-offs. I'm going to go the other way. Let's start with the planted one. So I'm going to go back to my G. I'm planting my ring finger on 4th fret, and my pointer finger is already ready to go in 2nd fret. He's not hovering. I'm pressing down like that note is about to be played. And I'm going to pick and pull. Ooh, I bent that one a little bit out of tune. Don't press too hard. People will hear it, especially when you're playing chords. Don't squeeze your chords too hard. You'll make them go out of tune. You might actually think your instrument isn't intonated. Be a little bit light. This is a hard technique to balance that kind of masterful, loud note with not pressing too hard. But you'll find the balance. It's in there. So fourth to 2. Now, when I feel really good about that, I'm going to do the same thing I did with Hammer-ons. I'm going to try to go all the way to 0. So 4 to 0, all the same string. Then, when I feel good about that, I'm going to increase the speed. Maybe try to hold my pick up here so you can see that I'm not using my right hand. Put it up behind my back. I don't know. Then I'm going to try to add multiple strings. Now, for that one, I decided to pick the front of each string. G, D, G. But I should be able to do it without it. Let's see. So, no pick. Yeah, a little bit sloppier. Probably because I need to practice that more. But I hear all my notes. They're in there. So that should be good. Now, these are all speed techniques. These are hammer-on and pull-off techniques that involve single notes being played one at a time. Before we're done today, let me show you one other really nice applicable use for hammer-ons. Put them in chords, like right now. It's like putting kale in your green drink. What are those drinks called? Steven, what are those drinks called? The ones where you mix lettuce into, or kale, hearty lettuce, into smoothies. Anyway, put your hammer-ons into chords like you would put spinach into a post-workout, terrifying-looking smoothie. I mostly drink soda.
The chords are tastier.
The chords are tastier, says Steven. Okay, here we go. So let's grab a C chord, standard C chord in first position. This chord is in my Nashville number videos. But you should know this one. This one's one of the first ones you learn. So C. I'm going to start with my middle finger not fretted on 2nd fret. I'm going to strum my strings, and then I'm going to hammer on my middle finger, adding an additional texture, an additional note, an additional rhythm, all of it. It takes my C chord from normal. I'm not going to say bland because C is a cool chord. To extra. So we're going to have real slow. That's the other thing about hammer-ons and pull-offs too. You shouldn't have to rush to do them. You should be able to wait and then get that hammer-on in there. Should be able to exist just fine, even in a slow tempo. So now I've got this C chord that has this additional note in it. Why don't we go from C to A minor and put a hammer-on in both of those? So we'll go. Now let's go to A minor. I'm doing the same hammer-on. My middle finger, same string and everything. I can make a riff out of this. Cool. So that is one use. Now, just for fun, I want to do something else with this chord hammer-on thing. Me and my students, we like to come up with our own picking patterns as often as we can, and I always like to try to fool people into thinking that we're these crazy chicken-picking monsters that can go a million miles a minute like a banjo. Those are all hammer-on and pull-off techniques, those speed tricks. You banjo players / banjo guitar players, whatever you are out there, know this about banjo. Banjo's a tricky instrument, but it's just a mixture of finger rolls and hammer-ons that give you that wild Kentucky bluegrass speed. So let's grab that C chord again. Let me explain a super simple picking pattern. I'm going to play A, B, D, and then G strings. A, B, D, G. While I'm holding a C chord. That'll sound like this. Now, even if I played that as fast as I could pick it, it still doesn't sound like a million miles an hour. There's no texture to it. It's one set of rhythms. It's just 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So there's really not enough meat and potatoes to it for me. So I'm going to add a hammer-on. Same finger, my middle finger, 2nd fret, D string. When I come across that note, I'm going to hammer on. Listen to the difference from the first picking pattern to this. So first picking pattern with the hammer-on. Okay, now I'm going to play it at 1,000,000 miles an hour just for fun. A minor. So that's just adding that hammer on. Nothing else special about it. And that's how easy it is to start enhancing your playing. Out of nowhere, you had a simple picking pattern, and now you've got one that's got some texture. It's a little bit more complex. It has some rhythm structure where it's not just a steady beat the entire time. In my words, you're getting more interesting. So now that might be offensive to people who really like to play simple or listen to simple music, but I think it's more interesting, so I'll stick to my guns on that. So anyway, start putting hammer-ons and pull-offs into your playing, whether it's single note stuff, using an open string, doubles in a row, multiple strings, whatever you can come up with. Chords, we just did chords, picking patterns. These are great techniques, but start at the beginning. Get yourself a really, really strong hammer and a really, really clean pull-off before you try to make them into an impossible texture. Start simple, get it down. That way, it's just like, it's probably impossible to multiply without knowing addition. I don't know if that's true or not, but that seems like a good parallel for this. Get your simple stuff down first, then make it complex when you have the confidence in the technique. I'm going to go back to drinking my mimosa. It's Sunday. We're not supposed to be working. We work on any day we can. If you have any questions, especially about the technique stuff, or really anything, if you want to know what type of deodorant I use, leave a comment, expect a response from someone who is knowledgeable. Yeah. Drink a mimosa, if you're of age. Yeah.